Hello everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. The arrival of foals is a sure sign that spring is here. We'll talk horses coming up, but first we're talking wheat. Here's our Dave Deacon and our Extension small grain specialist, David Marburger.
Well, in terms of the crop condition, we're still kind of sitting where we've been for the past several weeks, according to some of the USDA numbers. A lot of the wheat itself rated fair to good, and then we can say a lot of that about a lot of our wheat acres. There are some areas that look really good as you venture into maybe north central Oklahoma, and some areas that don't look quite as good. Some of those areas that maybe miss some of those rains, south central Oklahoma, where we have some wheat that's maybe a little bit shorter than we'd like, and then as you venture out into the panhandle, northwestern part of the state, as well as the panhandle region, where they miss some of those rains as well. Some of the wheat out there not looking as good as we would like to see it, but in general, probably setting up to have an okay year. I think right now we have quite a bit of soil moisture on a lot of our wheat acres, and overall the temperatures haven't been too warm, so we've got more ideal conditions now for grain fill. It's just going to probably come down to a matter of earlier in the growing season, when we were developing the tillers as well as determining the head size. Did we not catch quite a timely enough rain at that time to help give us maybe some more tillers and maybe bigger head size?
But with all of the recent rains, have you been seeing any diseases?
Yeah, so we caught some of those rainfalls here, and we've had some more moderate temperatures, so conditions that are conducive for disease development. And in some places, yeah, we've seen an increase, especially in leaf rust. We've also been seeing a little bit of stripe rust, but not to the extent that we've been seeing leaf rust. In terms of right now, for a lot of the wheat acres in the state, if you were thinking about going out for a fungicide application, you've more than likely missed the boat on that. Some of our fungicides, at the latest that we can apply them, are going to be labeled for about 30 days of a pre-harvest interval. So for a lot of the wheat acres, we've probably missed that application already. As you venture further north, further north in the state, as well as go to the northwest and out into the panhandle region, if you're thinking about making an application out there, there's still probably a little bit of time. But for a lot of our producers in more southwestern Oklahoma, we've already missed that application window.
And actually, there's some learning opportunities in the southwest part of the state right now with the wheat tours.
Yeah, so the wheat tour season, the wheat variety tour season is upon us. We've got over 30 tours that were scheduled for this year, and we've already started some of those last week. The big one coming up is Lahoma, and that's going to be on May 12th at 9 o'clock.
And one of the cool things about some of the larger wheat tours, you have all the varieties out there for that area.
Yeah, we have almost all the varieties that have been entered into the variety trials, maybe at the request of the person submitting the variety. Maybe they didn't quite want that variety to be south of I-40, so it won't be at Chickasha, right, or it won't be at Altus, but it'll be at Lahoma. But again, at those regional locations, we'll have 40 to 50, close to 50 varieties at those locations to talk about. So a number of different varieties from a number of the private and public institutions that submit those varieties. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you much, David. And for more information on the wheat variety tours, go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Extension Cropping System Specialist Josh Lofton is here now to talk a little bit about canola. Josh, you and the team have been out around the state on the canola tours. What did you see, and what kind of questions did you get?
Well, yeah, we just wrapped up on Monday of this week. So we went from around southwest Oklahoma, Gould, all the way through Miami on Monday. So we've seen a lot of canola. The good thing is that we were talking a couple weeks about that we were at the point of no return. We were either going to make a crop or the crop was going to go backwards on us. Thankfully, over the last couple weeks, the rain has come and is still coming, and so we have a crop that has turned around almost a 180.
It's good that there's that renewed optimism and energy. Mm-hmm. There is something though called the crud. Explain what that is.
Yeah, so what we have is, it's called the crud or winter decline syndrome, and essentially it's where we have the freezes in the spring. And when we get warm and we get cold again, what happens is that stem kind of starts to crack, and whenever it does crack or it splits, we can actually get some decay in the stem itself. This can happen very early in the spring, which is probably what happened this year, or it can happen a little bit later in the spring. Most growers can have this and not know any different. This year, where we've had spots of winter kill is where we're seeing them really pop up, to where we have not as high populations as we normally see out there. And if you have some with that winter decline syndrome, what we're starting to see is with these big storms that are passing through and these big fronts, we're seeing a lot of canola lodged. And that's really the concern. It's not necessarily the winter decline syndrome, it's not necessarily winter kill, it's not necessarily the storms, but when all three of them happen together, we're starting to see a lot of canola on the ground, and it's just really hard. They'll continue to try to make seed. It'll just make it very difficult at harvest to actually be able to capture that seed successfully.
As we kind of turn the corner toward harvest, any last minute sort of management advice, scouting kind of things that folks may want to do?
Yeah, and we still have some time left before we put it in the swath rows. We're still looking in between, maybe a couple of days to a couple of weeks still for some growers. So what we've seen when we've gone throughout the state is we still have a substantial amount of aphids out in the state. And some of these rains will maybe decrease some of the populations a little bit, but what you have to do is once we stop getting these rains and you can actually get boots in the field again, go out and check. Once we stop flowering, we have a lot of tools to manage those aphids. While we're still flowering, our tools are kind of limited. We're limited to a pyrethroid or carbine, but whenever we stop flowering, we can bring transform back into the mix. And so then we have three really good options for managing aphids in the field.
Switching gears just a little bit, after canola, some folks are maybe considering planting cotton who haven't ever done it before or haven't done it in many, many years. Just a little initial guidance for them as they start kicking that around.
Yeah, the biggest thing, especially when you do any sort of double crop, if you're going to go after canola or wheat and double crop it, or if you're still doing full season cotton and you're wanting to get it in maybe around the 1st of June, the biggest thing when you do any crop rotations is plant back restrictions. If you've done canola or if you've done wheat and you've planted or you've put out some of the herbicides that have some of those longer plant back restrictions, you need to make sure to check your labels, because that can do a number on that new crop, especially cotton, where a lot of folks that are growing it this year aren't familiar with some of those herbicides and how they interact with the new crop. So make sure you check your herbicides, make sure your fertility is in line. It's all the same things to get a good crop. It's just a new crop for a lot of growers.
Okay, and of course we'll talk more about it in the weeks ahead.
Of course.
Josh, thanks a lot for your time today.
Thank you.
April has been a month of rain sweeping across the plains as well as wind. Rain events just keep rolling through. The rain is good. The downside are floods, hail, and storm damage. On Tuesday, storms popped up along a cold front in central Oklahoma and moved east. The storm tracks show up as green rain bands on a 24-hour map from Wednesday afternoon. The bulk of this rain was in eastern Oklahoma. Last weekend's rain event was mainly a northern Oklahoma event with the heaviest bands in yellow. If we check on rains for the 2 weeks from April 12th to the 26th, the map fills in quickly with high rain amounts. The blue areas had less than an inch of rain. Going back 30 days from March 27th through April 25th, most of Oklahoma is blue, having received twice their normal rainfall for those 30 days. The yellowish areas were on the low end. They had received less than 80% of normal rainfall. That's prior to the latest storms this weekend. Our sweeping waves of rain show up as blue peaks on a graph of rain events at Oklahoma City East through Wednesday. Oklahoma City East had 5 separate rain events since the last days of March, and any rain this weekend will make it 6 waves of rain. Here's Gary with drought changes.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning, everyone. Well, for the past few weeks, I've been promising you a much nicer looking drought monitor map the following week, and I'm on a hold to that promise once again. Let's go right to the new map and see what we have. As you can see, a dramatic reduction in drought across the state of Oklahoma. Now the only remaining drought exists across far east central down through southeastern Oklahoma. We do have a little bit of abnormally dry conditions surrounding that area and also up in the northwest. I can promise you that we will see another good-looking map next week, so stay tuned for that. We can also take a look at the latest 3-month temperature and precipitation outlooks on the Climate Prediction Center. These are valid for the May through July period. As we can see on the temperatures, we have increased odds of above normal temperatures over that 3-month time frame. Now, for the precipitation, we don't have much indication of what the forecasters are thinking for our area, except the far, far western Oklahoma Panhandle, where we do see increased odds of above normal precipitation. Now, a little bit closer to our time frame, this is for May 3rd through May 9th. It looks like the cool weather we've been experiencing off and on over the past week or so is going to continue as we see for that period, May 3rd through May 9th, increased odds of below normal temperatures. So that signals probably a big mass of cold air from up north moving down this way and sticking around a little bit. However, it is a springtime in Oklahoma, so if we get a long spell of cool weather, we'll probably get a long spell of warm weather following that, and maybe another chance of rain. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Kim Anderson, our crop marketing specialist, is here now. And Kim, everyone wants to know, have wheat prices finally bottomed out?
I think prices probably bottomed out this last Monday with that July contract at $3.14. You know, it followed a 24-cent price decline. We recovered 6-7 cents of that price decline. You look at the U.S. crop, how it's progressing. I don't see much change coming on down the pike, you know, for increased yields, and so that I think that's good. And then the foreign news is, I think, positive, for at least neutral for wheat prices. So yeah, I think we bottomed out for a while.
The buzz this week is about NAFTA and potential changes that could be coming. What's your take on what could happen to crop markets?
Well, it creates some uncertainty in the market about what's going to happen, and anytime you have uncertainty, it possibly increases risk. It's going to have a potential impact, a negative impact on prices. You look at what's going on in the markets. 40% of U.S. wheat is exported. 12% of it goes to Mexico. They're in our top 3 importers of our wheat. Only 1% of our wheat goes to Canada. If you're looking at corn, 40% of the U.S. corn is exported. 27% goes to Mexico. Number 1 importer of corn. Only 1% goes to Canada. But we've got direct rail lines. We have a price advantage to export into Mexico. They need our wheat, and they're going to be price buyers. So NAFTA probably won't have much impact there. If you look at what the administration is concentrating on, from what I've read, is there's import taxes on, say, products coming from China. China has put in distribution centers in Mexico and then imports it into the United States duty-free. I think that's what the administration is looking at changing, is things like that, not what's going on in the agriculture market.
How important right now is the current wheat price?
I don't think it's too important. Farmers don't have too much wheat to sell. You know, they may be cleaning out some bins and stuff, but mostly I don't think the current price is very important. I think what we got to look at is what's going to happen at harvest.
And do you think the stage is now set for a better market? Let's hope. Fingers crossed.
I do. You know, I was predicting $4.25. You know, current harvest price is anywhere from $3.15 to $3.50 for forward contracts. I think it's going to be closer to $4. I think it's going to depend if we have a good quality product. And you look at our exports are twice what they were last year, which means the world needs our wheat. And if we get a quality product, they're going to be buying it, and that's going to drive up prices.
Okay. As we can see, it won't be long now till we find out.
That's right.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Kim.
May is typically the time when spring calving operations will be working the calves. And part of the working process, of course, is to immunize those calves against such things as the Clostridial complex of diseases, especially blackleg. And in some cases, your veterinarian may be recommending that you also give the IBR, BVD, the respiratory vaccinations as well. Visit with your veterinarian about that before you do it. But no matter which vaccinations you're giving, let's follow the beef quality assurance guidelines so that we're producing the kind of quality of beef for our consumers that will be wholesome and healthy. And a big part of that starts at the ranch by giving the vaccination in the proper location. Certainly, I think we want to try to do as much of the vaccinating as possible in the neck region, where we're not going to cause any kind of reduced quality of a product in the area of the animal that results in the steaks and the roast. A lot of the vaccination products that are available will give us the choice of whether we use intramuscular, IM, or subcutaneous, listed as sub-Q. If we have that choice, I would always use the subcutaneous, and that way we'll do even less damage to the tissue in the animal. If we're using that subcutaneous vaccination, let's remember to do our tenting, pull the skin up away from the neck muscle, and then inject the vaccine underneath the skin. If we're required to use intramuscular, where we go directly into the muscle, then that's even more important that we do it in the neck area. A part of the beef quality assurance program of vaccinating any cattle, whether it be calves or cows, is to keep good records of the vaccines that we're using, how they were given, and it might even include the part about who actually delivered the vaccine. So I would suggest that you go to the Beef Quality Assurance Manual, the Oklahoma Beef Quality Assurance Manual, and look up what are some ideas for good records for vaccination programs. On those records, I would expect that we would want to have, of course, the individual or the group ID. In other words, if we've got them individually numbered, what that calf number is, or if it's just the spring 2017 calves, we have that listed. The date in which the calves were vaccinated, the product that was given to them, and the manufacturer's lot number. Very important to keep track of that information. The dosage that we used. Also include the route and the location of administration. By route, again, we're talking about sub-Q or intramuscular, and the location we hope will be in the neck area. The earliest date that these cattle can be actually sold. In other words, what's the withdrawal date of the particular product that we're using? And finally, again, let's list who actually gave the vaccination. I think if we put those things all together in the record and follow our due diligence of doing these vaccinations according to the Beef Quality Assurance Guidelines, we'll be doing our part to make sure that our customers, the eventual eaters of the steaks and roasts and the hamburgers that we're producing on our ranches, get a wholesome, healthy, quality food product. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Now back to foaling season and what to expect when your mare is expecting. Here's our Extension Equine Specialist, Chris Heine.
Most of the time, mares foal pretty easily without much help from humans, and you'll have years where you have absolutely nothing go wrong and breeding season goes pretty well. And then it seems like you hit one of those years where mares refuse to settle, we have more dystocia issues, mares die, foals have illnesses, and it seems to all compound at one time. And it's really important that you're sort of mentally prepared to be ready for any of those issues, regardless of when they may happen. So one common issue for breeders that's important to remember is vaccinating the mares properly for equine herpes virus. Essentially, most horses actually are already carriers. The vaccination schedule keeps their immune system in top function so that they are not shedding virus, which would affect the fetus. Another common issue you may see are foals that may have some angular limb deformities. Those actually can be addressed if they're caught early in the foal's life. So we have a lot of methods available to us with just corrective glue-on shoes for the foals, splinting or bracing legs, or even some chemical treatments that can actually result in a perfectly normal foal if, again, it's addressed early. If a mare dies, you need to be prepared. So you need to think about, one, if the mare dies early, do you have a source of colostrum for that foal? It's really important that a foal receives good quality colostrum within essentially the first 12 hours of his life. So having a colostrum bank or a source ready and available for you, stored colostrum, or having a resource. Sometimes we actually may have to run plasma to those foals, but then you're still faced with the prospect of, well, what do I do with this now orphan baby? A couple of different options. There are nurse mares that may be available, so you might want to always check into sort of those options before. It is actually possible to induce lactation in mares, a little bit more of a complicated procedure. There's also milk replacer, both liquid and pelleted. And some people have even reared foals with goat's milk. Most people will never have to deal with an orphan foal or a mare that dies. It's just good to have those thoughts ahead of time to be prepared if and when it does happen.
One of the things you're looking for when you're walking on your dam faces would be signs of any kind of burrowing animal. Of course, the burrow itself, but there are other more subtle signs like a pathway through the vegetation or a slide that might have been through the vegetation that might have been made by a beaver or muskrat. These guys typically will not leave anything that you can see most of the time, except for that pathway or slide. They're going to start burrowing under the water, and they're going to want to work their burrow up to the top of your dam. That's why sometimes when you're walking across the face of a dam or the top of a dam, you'll see an area that has collapsed. That's a beaver den that has collapsed, and that is a very bad thing. If anything creates a pathway for water to begin flowing across the top of your dam, that's called overtopping, and that's a major way to have a catastrophic dam loss. The other way you can lose your dam, of course, is if water is flowing directly through a gopher burrow, begins to flow through a gopher burrow or through some decaying tree roots that have been allowed to grow on your dam. That's called piping. That too is a catastrophic way to lose your dam. So get out once a year and walk your dam faces and pay attention to what's going on. And if you see something, don't go into denial. Pick up the phone and call the Natural Resource Conservation Service to get their opinion. Maybe take some pictures, maybe flag it if it's going to be hard to find again, but be proactive, be early in detecting problems, and you will save yourself a lot of grief later on. The other thing to watch with dams and so forth would be the spillways. Your dam should have two spillways. The first place that water overflows is called the primary spillway. In smaller ponds, that's typically a trickle tube, but it might be an internal standpipe or a tower of some sort. You need to look at that structure, make sure it's not clogged by anything, make sure it's not collapsing. Next, you need to look for the secondary spillway, which is generally a broad, flat, grassy path for the extra heavy flows to go around the edge. Secondary spillways need to be very well vegetated. They are very vulnerable to erosion. If you see any signs of erosion, again, do not deny the problem. Take steps to correct it early before the erosion becomes serious.
Now to a story about generosity and the steer that's really lending a helping hand.
During the week of the Oklahoma Youth Expo this year, we had a lot of people approach us about wanting to do something to support their fellow people in agriculture from Northwest Oklahoma that suffered through the wildfires, and we really didn't know what to do. And one morning during the show, Senator Eddie Fields came to me, whose kids were showing there, and said, "Hey, my daughter wants to donate one of her 3 show steers to the fire victims, and maybe we could auction it off in the Sale of Champions." I said, "I think that's a great idea. Let me go check with my board of directors," and they said absolutely.
I just asked them, if they thought it'd be a good idea to donate one of the animals to the Youth Expo, to be able to donate that for fire victims relief. And in visiting with Tyler Norvell and the board of OIE, that they decided that after we donated the calf, that they would use those proceeds that they generated from that animal would be used for the kids that lost projects in the fires.
We weren't expecting help from them. Everybody brought hay, and then they donated their steer, and we're greatly thankful.
If I was in the situation, I know they'd help me, or they would help us out. If anyone else would, if I needed it, somebody would stand up.
I think it teaches our 4-H members that when they see a need, that they need to, on their own, step out and find a solution for that. So they see that repetitively through the 4-H program, and so then when they encounter a challenge or an issue in their area or here in the state of Oklahoma, I think it really encourages them to say, even though I'm a young adult, I can help in some way and I can find a solution. And that's why the program's so great, because we have what most people would call kids really making a big difference in other people's lives.
That's what you do. When someone's down, you bring them back up, and I'm just grateful to be in that community and in part of that organization where we don't even know them, and they're paying it forward to us, and that's just really close to my heart.
The livestock show folks spend the whole year competing against each other, but when tragedy strikes, we're one team. We help each other. And you know, the agriculture industry is under a lot of attack, especially production agriculture, from outside groups that don't understand what we do. And I think that's drawn us closer together over the last several decades as 4-H and FFA students. And yet they've been able to see the generations before them and what they've done to make not only their local communities better, but our state and nation.
I think that's just the Oklahoma standard. You know, we reach out in disasters, whether it's man-made or natural. We step up, you know, and we make a difference, you know, and that's just, I think that's part of what Oklahomans are. You know, we care, we're compassionate about our fellow man in this state, and we do whatever we can to help out.
Thanks so much for joining us for SUNUP this week. Remember, you can find us anytime at our website and also follow us on YouTube and social media. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone. And remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at SUNUP.